Would you like me to do roll call?
Oh, sure.
What if he said no?
We need to identify this as the informational meeting.
Board Member Barkus,
Here.
Board Member Doyle,
Here.
Board Member Cease,
Here.
Board Member Wakeman,
Here.
Board Member Chambers,
Here.
Board Member Lindmo,
Here.
Board Member Davis,
Here.
and Board Member DeVore and Chair Reagan are absent.
Okay, do we have to approve their absence?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Here. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. It's moved and approved. All right. Approval of the agendas. Any comments on it? Comment on
I move to approve.
that? Okay. Move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Moved and approved. Next thing is approval of the minutes. We just did that. Treasurer's report. Sue?
The current balance is $537,150. All of the TIFA revenue has been received, including the IFT money for the tax year 2022. Since the last meeting, a payment was made to Elon City, CR Forge for the shovel fencing in the amount of $15,990.50. And we also purchased some signs for the downtown.
Any questions of Sue? We need to approve the...
We don't need to approve the treasurer's report.
Okay, let's move on then. Public comments for items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on. Old business. Mike, is there any?
There's no old business. The only item is the budget.
All right, let's move on to that.
Attached is your proposed fiscal year 23-24 budget. This past year, we saw an approximate increase of $55,600.06 to the DDA fund. This was more than what was projected. We originally budgeted $799,328 in revenues, but we actually took in $854,928.06 this year. The major increases are land sales. We do have some tax increment, or we do have some abatements that we have coming offline. But the marijuana facilities, which are all in the DDA district, are a major reason as to why we're seeing the increase in revenue. This coming up fiscal year, we're going to, if you're not familiar with how property taxes work, back in 1994 when Proposal A was instituted, it allowed for the maximum increase in property value that you could be taxed on was if you didn't sell your house or didn't sell your property was 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. This is the first year since Proposal A was enacted in 1994. They will actually see the full 5% increase for capped properties. If you had an uncapped property, meaning it was a new property that came online for assessment, or if you sold the property, your value went up 7.9% for the taxable value that the state uses for tax collection. So this is a significant increase for the city. Across the board, the city is going to see about a $15 million increase in taxable value this year. That doesn't mean we're getting $15 million in taxes. That's what we levy our millage rate off of. And I would say of that $15 million, I want to say about $6-7 million is going directly to the DDA. So you're going to see a significant increase this year. This year we we're projecting $950,000 in revenue. We anticipate it's probably could be about $50,000 more. So we do anticipate it's probably going to be about $1 million in revenue coming into the DDA. But to be conservative, we kept the revenue at 950, and we're going to work off that number for the budget this year. So the current fiscal year, we originally budgeted $941,374.51 in expenditures. This includes also the bond payment we pay for City Hall. We're going to have to make some amendments to the budget this year, and we're going to have to make a little, so I want to walk you through those real quick. So we'll need to increase the capital outlay from $262,500 to $298,779.85. This allows us to fund the number of projects we have. For example, $121,000 for the City Hall air conditioning, which we already completed. That's done. We finished up the restroom for the Riverwalk. We had to put the key system in. That was $5,577. $37,500 for the museum stairs, which is currently underway. That project's going on as we speak. When we repaved Valley Vista, that was $83,954.25. This is actually budgeted last fiscal year, but it was completed this year and it came in significantly under budget. That allowed us to actually do the fencing at the showboat. And then $50,000 for the Phase 1 trail, for the trail. So if you recall, the DDA approved $300,000 over a 3-year period. This past year was the first year of the allocation. We only gave $50,000 this year because that's what they told us we needed. So those are the modifications we'll need to make in this year's budget. We also need to decrease the maintenance community promotion line item, which is the social district, from $10,250 to $4,000. This is for our social district costs, and it reflects any future projected costs for the year. We also had to increase the maintenance costs for personnel from $46,172.79 to $54,437.28. This year, our DPW staff worked much more in the district due to the snow, and so so you understand how our DPW works. They charge their time based on where they work. So if they work 3 hours in the downtown district in a day, they charge that 3 hours to the downtown. If they have to work on water projects, they choose 3 hours to water. So they charge their time based on where they work. So those numbers every year are always different than what we budget, but they usually at the end of the year the numbers pan out. It just depends on where they charge their time, but so we'll need to modify that. So going into next year's budget, there's a number of routine expenses that we always budget for, but the major appropriations that are going to be asked for this year are the following. The first one will be $297,768 for the DDA contribution to the City Hall bond. This year I'm asking the DDA to take on the full bond payment. We've done this for a couple of years now. The general fund needs to be alleviated for a number of reasons. Our pension costs are increasing significantly and we have to make payments toward them. In addition, the city has also increased their contributions to local streets. The city's done 18 streets in the last 3 years, including the ones the DDA have done. So we're putting all of our money, any money we have, we're putting towards those two issues mainly. In addition, the city did last year add a full-time police officer. We were going to try and do another one this year. We can't do it. And then also in the city's end, there's a number of park building improvements. Also, the city's going to have to make a significant expense at Ware Road later this year, next fiscal year, and we're stretching our money all over our different funds if the DDA can take a project on, we're going to ask that the DDA do it. The city will take on what they can, and then wherever we have projects where they're aligned to, we're stretching our budget as much as we can. So that's why we're asking for that full bond amount. We've also have $661,880.99 in capital outlay that's being proposed. The first one will be $192,952.99 for the repaving of Ottawa Street between Hudson and Brook Street. This is in the DDA district, and with the increase in marijuana funds this year, the city will also pave the adjacent Brook Street in conjunction with this project. So just so I explain how I budget streets, I always budget the street for the year prior that it's being done, mainly for cash flow purposes in order to make sure we can do all the projects we have planned in the next 7 years. So the plan would be we would budget it this year, but next July we would do the project. That's how we do all of our street projects. We always budget, whether it's in the DDA or our normal street funds, we budget the project the year prior, and then the next year we do it, to make sure we have the money to do it when the time comes. The other big expense is $158,828 for the library HVA system. Their air conditioning and boilers are in terrible condition at the library. They have to be upgraded. The library is in the DDA, and public improvements are allowed in the DDA statute, and the DDA captures the levy for the Kent District Library as part of their revenue. So this is being asked for out of this budget. $150,000 for the phase 1 of the Meyer Trail. This would include the $50,000 we didn't commit this year, along with the $100,000 we agreed to commit for next year. $75,000 for handicap access reimbursement. This is a project we did put in the budget this year. It just hasn't moved, but I'm planning on getting this out July 1. And I put extra funds in it, so I upped it from $50,000 to $75,000 for next year. $30,000 for proposed fountains in the Flat River. It was requested. I believe it was at the last meeting, or maybe the meeting prior to the DDA, about putting some fountains in the Flat River to kind of help with the water flow and aesthetics. So we got an estimate of $30,000 for that, so we did put that in the budget for this year. Also, there's $25,000 for LED lighting upgrades at Veterans Park. Those lights need to be upgraded to LED, so we did put that in. We also put $20,000 for an updated design for the Riverwalk Plaza. It's been about, I want to say, 20 years since that plaza has been put in, and we're looking to see if we need to do any improvements to it going forward. So we set some funds aside for that. The last one is for $10,100 for flock safety cameras. I wish the police chief was here today, but he's working midnight shift tonight, so he can't be here. But what the city wants to do is we want to install 4 of these flock cameras basically at the access points to the city. One coming in from Hudson to the south, Foreman to the north, right at Alden Nash and Maine, and one probably right at Jackson. What the flock cameras do, they're part of a network of cameras nationwide. Kent County is installing these flock cameras pretty much in their patrol in the townships they patrol. I believe they've put up about 70 cameras throughout their patrol jurisdiction. I believe Wyoming's putting up cameras along with Kentwood. What it allows us to do is, if we have issues, say we have break-ins towards, let's say we have break-ins towards, let's just say the marijuana shops or your shops downtown. We get a camera that we have a camera of a car that was into the building. We can identify like the description of the car, and the way the cameras are set up is we can take a time period, let's say 2 hours before and 2 hours after the crime occurred. We can identify all vehicles with that camera system to identify possible suspect vehicles. And then from there, the cameras are like they're like the military. I mean, they're very high tech cameras. They can get to the license plate from up in the sky very easily. And what it allows us to do is it will only get license plate and vehicle descriptions of the cars. And then from there, law enforcement can then identify those vehicles to see if they were actually involved in whatever the issue is. This can be used not just for police issues, it can be for missing people. You know, we have a number of people that are missing in the community, and we can, if we had this might be able to help with that. It also allows us, as we put information in, the neighboring jurisdictions can also use these can be tipped to those cameras in the neighboring jurisdictions. So if we know, let's just say this person's missing and they drive out of Lowell, and let's say he's at 28th Street in Cascade. Let's just say it's a dementia person or something like that. We might be able to locate that person through the cameras. These cameras are being used nationwide. What we will actually do is as we get closer to implementing these cameras, we would invite you and the council to come to a presentation so you can get a better understanding of how they work. Some things that I know people are concerned about are privacy issues, and what we would actually have to institute policies to make sure that we're not doing anything with the information. But one of the things that people get concerned about is whether or not you can actually sell information. The camera company can actually sell information for these cameras. That's not what they do. The only information that would be, let's just say a car drove by one of the cameras and the license plate got identified. The company that does our cameras, they do not have access to the vehicle information or anything of that nature. That's strictly within the law enforcement agencies that deal with it. It's not something like we can go, like they're gonna go sell our information to another company. Like there's always those concerns, those privacy concerns, and a lot of those privacy concerns have been and will be addressed if we were to institute these cameras. So the police department would like to institute this. The DDA, since 3 of them would be located in the DDA district, we can have 3 of them. The DDA could pay for 3 of them, and then the general fund could pay for 1 of them. And we're asking for the DDA to consider that as well.
Seems awful cheap.
They are. It's $14,000 for the first year, and it's $12,000 for the second year. It's a 2-year subscription is how it starts. That's just for 4 cameras. If we want to put more cameras in, then that cost goes up. But it's like $3,000 a camera after the initial installation annually. And we've done our research on these. I mean, police chief's done research on them. I've done research on them. A lot of my concerns that I had when they first came out were satisfied in my research. And I know that the police chief, I mean, they're not cheap, but when I asked the police department, I go, is this a needs to have or a wants to have? And they're kind of thinking that because of the more stuff that's, quite honestly, we're getting more things coming into the city, not just because of the marijuana shops. We're so close to Grand Rapids. We're getting a lot more issues coming in from the Grand Rapids area. So the police is concerned about it. They thought this was a need, so that's why we're asking for it. Also for the budget, we put our same marketing amounts in, $75,000 for the chamber. That includes summer concerts, Christmas marketing, all of that. No changes there. Also, $4,000 for any costs with the social district. The DDA we're asking the DDA, like we've been doing, we'll fund an officer for the summer concerts, and then we have to reserve some funds for any type of signage. We have to replace any signage or anything else necessary in the social district. So I left some funds available for that. So also attached to this budget, I have the budget attached, but I also did a cash flow for the DDA. And the DDA is going to use, as we do this every year, the DDA is going to use a significant amount of fund balance to complete capital projects. That being said, we will have a projected 9.1% fund balance at the end of the upcoming fiscal year. We actually a little bit better, we would actually, if June 30, 2024 came about, we should actually be in a better condition than on paper. As I mentioned, we'll probably get a little bit more revenue than what we have projected. But also, since the way we budget for streets the money wouldn't, other than maybe some engineering costs, the money for the construction wouldn't actually be until after June 30th of next fiscal year. So you're not going to be running into any deficit or anything where there's a concern from what I see and how I've set the budget up. So as I said, we should be cushioned, and I'm not concerned about running out of money or anything like that. So this is what I put together for the budget. I'm recommending the Downtown Development Authority amend the current budget and approve the fiscal year budget for 23-24 as I presented it. So I can answer any questions you might have.
Do you have any questions?
I do. First of all, I think it's an excellent budget, Mike. It's money well spent, in my opinion. Questions, I see transfer to local street fund, nothing for next year.
No.
Is that completed? or-
Yeah, so what happened was, when we did the budget last year, we had planned to transfer, when we did Valley Vista, we had planned to transfer the money to the local street fund and have this project paid out of the local street fund. It was actually charged out of the DDA, so we never made the transfer. We just took it, we just kept the money we just did the construction in this fund.
Take it right up.
Yeah, we took it right up. So that, we won't do that anymore. Sue and I have talked about that. We're gonna, if we have a DDA project, we're not gonna transfer it to local street like we proposed when we did the budget. We're gonna just keep it in the fund. It's just one less thing we have to do on our end, and it can be billed out right. And we already know what the number is, and we already have the money set aside, so we know how much, and we can watch it.
Sure.
Just as
Okay.
easy.
Just curiosity, how much is still owed on the city hall debt, roughly?
Oh, good question. I just have it. It's about 2.2 million.
Okay. And the payment is the 297?
Yeah. So the bond will be paid off in full by 2032.
And then the library, is that owned by the city?
Yes.
The building is owned by
The
the city?
building. So the building is owned by the city. Unfortunately, this is a backwards way of doing things, in my opinion. However, the way the KDL, this is not uncommon with library districts across the state. Your millage pays for the operations and staffing of the library that you pay for KDL. Your millage does not pay for anything pertaining to the building. The building is the responsibility of the jurisdiction that the library is in. The city receives no funding from any jurisdiction who uses the library. It's the only people who pay for any building operations out of that is the city. The city, if you look at all the patrons that go through the library, only about 33% of the patrons are city residents. So there's 66, there's 2/3 of the patrons of the library who they pay their taxes to KDL, but their jurisdictions pay nothing towards the operations of our buildings. So that falls solely on us. And it is from where I sit, is a thorn in my side, but it is what we have to deal with. And it is just, that's the way it is. So unfortunately, when we have these massive expenses, we have in the past gone to the community fund for some of these upgrades. The community fund would like us not to do that, so I don't do that. So we've been having to, we've been having to take care of those costs internally. This one, if I took this out of the general fund, I'd drain the general fund. I'd probably have to cut staffing, or I'd have to cut something major if I put this over there. So I'm asking that the DDA take this on.
Right. No, I think it's money well spent again. My wife spoke with the librarian, and it's true, the system is in bad shape.
Yes.
That needs to be.
It's in very bad shape over there.
And then my last question is and I know Eric told me that you try to maintain $500,000 of fund balance, so is this the first time you've gone down this 87,000?
No, usually what happens is when we put the budget together. We usually already have somewhere between, when it's done at the end of the next fiscal year, we always project that we're gonna have about 100,000, somewhere around there, usually is what it is. We've never gotten to that level. Things come up. I always budget conservative because I always wanna make sure that we can do everything we can, but it's never gotten, and even if it does, we get replenished the next year. It's never been an issue. It's never really been an issue. But the money is there to be spent, so it's not, I
Like the
mean,
state doesn't really want us to have a real big.
no, they
balance
don't.
Anymore anyway.
And so
They don't want us sitting on.
no, they don't want us sitting on a ton, I mean, where I came from, we sat on a $5 million fund balance for our DDA. It was insane. And I don't do that. We try and spend our money where, in the district like we're supposed to.
If we have a big project that we're looking at 3 years down the road or 4 years, we can build it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Without the state coming in.
Yeah, we can justify that to the state very easily.
As a follow-up to that, during the year, we usually have a few opportunities pop up. They're usually not big dollars. but
Right.
Some things that we, as a group,
Yeah.
like the ideas
Yeah.
to,
There's-
and some we don't.
Yeah, there's always things that come, there's always things that happen, whether it's during the, just because we budget something doesn't mean it's always gonna happen. Budgets are not, what I always tell people, like boards and councils, budgets aren't doctrines, they're guidelines. So, we try and follow, we try and follow the guidelines, we try and work with what we have, but things always come up during the year that are different than what's on paper, and most of the time, we're able to, when those items pop up, it's very easy for us to address them. It's been, and I don't foresee anything different this year. We just have some big capital this year that we're asking for. And plus, the DDAs, one of the other things is, I've tried to make it so, we're trying to knock out as many streets as we can across the city, and it's going to take us a very long time. But if there's actually not many streets in the DDA that are in the DDA district that we gotta really hit. The only other street I can think of is probably Chatham. But try to get the DDA to help alleviate some of that, so we can actually take the money that we would put to those streets to other streets, which is what we're doing. So I kind of view it all as I view everything. The way I view everything is that, when I do the budget, it's like putting pieces of a puzzle together, but we try and set the budget up across the whole city to try and make sure that everyone's taking care of things that really need to be done across the city, and we're trying to do it in a way so we can get as much stuff done in the city that can be done without make sure we can get it done, but we're not putting ourselves in a bad fiscal position either. So, because this isn't the only fund the city, we operate about 7 or 8 different funds, and we can't run any of them into deficit. But there's there's been a lot of disinvestment in the city for many years, and the city really is trying to do as much as we can to address it, and it's just costly.
Any other question?
So I have concerns about the flock security
Sure.
safety cameras. And obviously I've only just been able to do your research real quickly. With the system, how long is the data held for?
30 days. However, if we need to freeze it, basically the data goes away after 30 days. However, if we have something where we need it, we can hold it and save that data. So like if we have like a specific incident and we think that there's certain vehicles, we can hold that data until our investigation is complete, and then that data would either be kept as evidence or it would be purged into the system and deleted. So that is obviously a concern.
Yeah, is there any way that we could have it into a contract with them to have that as a lower data threshold, like a time threshold?
I believe that's the normal standard that they use, is
Yeah.
30 days.
But is there a way that we can?
I can ask them.
Okay. With the sharing of the data, is this going to just be limited to local, or is it going to be a part of their nationwide system?
Well, it can be used nationwide. So like, let's say for example, you have an Amber Alert, and let's just say we had an Amber Alert, somebody was missing in Lowell, and then, let's say the camera hit down in Florida. That information would be, would be alerted to them, and then they could use that information to help track it if they need to. But yeah, it is amongst law enforcement agencies. It's not shared with anyone else.
The data systems that we use to ping the license plates against, where do those come from?
The data systems, it's our current, so the data, so if we have a vehicle and we can identify a license plate, we would use our system internally to track that license plate. It's through the state of, it's called Law Enforcement Information Network. It's through the state of Michigan. It's the system that we use already.
Right, but it ties into other systems as well, so that way if somebody in Florida's Amber Alert system, they get pinged here, they would have access to that information.
They would have access to the description information. They would not
Right.
necessarily have access to the lien information, like to the
Right.
to the suspect information.
And that's what I'm asking is, all of the systems that tie into Flock's network,
Mhm.
how much information do we have as to accuracy of those systems? Because if somebody's system out of Florida is pinging people who are immigrants, and they don't
Right.
really want to know where they are, and they're getting picked up here in Michigan, we're just here.
We're not looking at doing anything with immigration or anything like that. We're looking at, but
We're not, but
yeah.
that's what the system
Yeah, but we
does.
would have policies in place that basically what we would look for other agencies, basically criminal activity,
Okay.
immigration, things of that nature. We don't even deal with that stuff because that's really not, I can tell you from being a former law enforcement officer, we're not within proximity to any of that stuff, so we don't even deal with it. But we would probably have, we've already talked about it, we would have very detailed policies that would specifically for specific activity that we would be looking for.
And we can build that into our contract with Flock.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to, but we have the ability to develop our own policies that we would follow.
Well, as soon as the data is in there, Flock has access to all of it, so we have to build it into our contract.
Right. Well, they don't necessarily. All they have is the camera information. They don't have the law enforcement information. They have the.
The comings and goings.
Yeah. That's what they have.
Yeah.
And does anybody actually think that anything gets actually deleted?
Flock claims that everything is deleted after 30 days. That's what because we asked that question too. It's like, well, how do we know? They said automatically purges out at 30 days.
And our system overrides
Mm-hmm.
after 30 days.
And like I said, before we were to implement this, I would let you know, we're gonna have Flock come here and do a demonstration, and you can ask them all the questions you have. But we're not gonna just, if you say, yeah, we do this, we're not gonna just go do it. We're gonna bring them here, come talk to you, and the city council, so everyone understands what this is. Because there's still some stuff that has to be done on our end before we could even implement it. So, and we know that.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
I move to approve the budget as presented.
Okay, Garrett? Second?
Second?
Okay. We got half a second with Martha and half with Eric. So it's been moved and seconded to approve the budget as written. Any further discussion on it?
If we approve the budget and we have a presentation from Flock and we're not satisfied with their things, it doesn't block us into.
Correct. No, well, I will bring it back to you for approval. I will bring it back. Before we purchase the cameras, I will bring it back to you for approval. I will not just implement this.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, moved and approved.
All right. That's all I have.
Okay, reports from anyone have any comments from the council?
I do. I'd like to just ask one thing. I don't know if this has been done in the past, but is there any way to get public input into the future budgets? For instance, Marty, he presented last week. He had an idea. Is there any, do we ask the citizens for ideas for DDA projects?
So, what we do with the city, no one ever does it, but we always have a public hearing for the budget. we have, you know, we have we have a budget meeting where we present the budget. There's always, every council meeting, someone can come to an idea, and if that's something that we want to look into, we look into it. I mean, there's been a number of things that, even in the city, that we've done. For example, the fencing. Resident came to a council meeting, said, hey, we need fencing, and I wasn't even a resident. We need fencing over at the showboat. We did it. I mean,
Right.
We don't normally do that. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't, but I mean, the way we do it, it seems to work. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's fine. I just, for instance, my wife didn't even realize, you know, what the DDA did and the pot of money that it's used and how it's used.
Right.
And if my wife is in that position, there's probably plenty of citizens that
Right.
don't really realize what this group does.
Right.
And I just suggest a year from now, somehow we make the citizens aware of
and you know, we do
just planning.
make citizens aware of stuff. I can tell you, in every community I've worked in, you can tell them until they're blue in the face, and they still aren't. They still the certain people have their mind made up, and they don't understand it, or they understand it, they don't like it. I mean, it's not that we don't communicate. I mean, we communicate at every meeting. I mean, we're very transparent. The community knows when we meet. You know, I've been doing this now 14 years, and people only come to city council when they're mad.
Is it quarterly that we have a publicly, like an invite for people to come and give their,
No, they come to any meeting.
they can come to any meeting, but isn't there a special meeting that we have?
We have a special meeting for the budget, the public hearing.
Okay,
That's
gotcha.
just today.
Right. Well, there'll be a
No,
public
you said
hearing.
there's 2 a year.
There's 2 informational meetings for the
Those
DDA.
are the
Okay.
ones I'm thinking of.
Those are the ones where we have to notify the tax jurisdictions. We notify the tax jurisdictions. Never once in my career have they shown up. But we're required by law to notify them,
Sure.
so.
Okay, there's no other comments, so entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Eric,
I second.
Lori? So, we don't even vote on those, right? Let's go.